Hey there everybody, it's markcrilley. I'm back with another how to draw video. Today I'm going to be doing another one of my pop-up chibi videos. Last time I did one of these was back during the Christmas holidays. Remember this one? Oh yeah, good times, good times. And so we're going to be doing the same kind of a thing here today. I've been looking forward to this all week actually. It's going to be a fun little project. I'm going to be showing you how to draw a chibi who is drawing a chibi. More about that later. But for now, let me go ahead and explain. What I've got here is a simple square. It is about, let's see here, 2 1/4 inches on all sides. That comes out to around 5.5, maybe a little more centimeters. And then all I've done is taken one side of it and extended it to twice the length. I'm going to go ahead and refocus the camera, but before I do that, I want to point out to you how much space there is down here below. That is actually part of the project. Make sure that you get plenty of space here underneath. And one final note, I'm not just drawing on ordinary paper here, I'm drawing on Bristol board, which is a kind of a card stock. Find the thickest paper you can, basically, and that's going to help you get the best results with this. Well, let's go ahead and refocus the camera so we can get into drawing some basic guidelines. Alright, so a fairly unusual shape here, basically kind of half of a circle, then it sort of gets a little more diagonal here, it gets a little lumpy looking on one side before it comes down to what will eventually be the chin, or the lack thereof. This character basically doesn't have a chin, but it comes across to the cheek area, I suppose, and this will be a 3/4 view of this little chibi boy's face. Well, let's add a guideline that will show the upper area of the eyes. Alright, so I decided to go ahead and just add the irises in while I was at it. And this upper line here shows the extent of where the upper eyelashes go, quite low on the head, and that is sort of classic chibi technique of making a character look younger. Basically, the more the facial features move down towards the bottom of the face, the more babyish the character looks. Well, let's go ahead and draw, I'm going to draw the arm that will eventually be holding a pencil that he'll be using to draw a chibi later on. So you can see the elbow here really comes right up to the edge of the box that we drew at the beginning. And I would say otherwise, make sure you maintain a little gap there between the shoulder and the side of his head. And maybe pay attention to where the hand is in relation to this eye. You know, that can kind of help you place that, or even just the distance over there. Now let's go ahead and get his other hand into place. Alright, so this hand over here is really just going to be holding the paper in place while the other hand is drawing, and we will get to the details of the pencil and so forth later on. But for now, let's go ahead and finish off drawing his lower body and legs. So I decided to create a pose where one of the legs is sort of kicking up into the air and the other one is flat on the floor. But, throughout this entire project, I would encourage you to make it your own, come up with your own ways of varying it to suit your own tastes. One thing I would point out, though, is notice how this one foot here does not quite extend as far as that first guideline that we created, if you want to keep those sort of chibi proportions. Well, I'm going to knock it off with the time-lapse. Get old man time-lapse to take a little break. Go have some coffee. Whoa, thank you. I could really use a cup of joe. So he's going to go away, and we're going to go ahead and start adding some further guidelines for the face. I guess the first thing that I want to put in here is an indication of the ear. And it's quite low on the face. Usually the ear should actually be up a little closer to the eyes, but we're doing, it's very cartoony stylings here today. So I'm parting ways with reality and just dropping in an ear right here. I suppose I might as well go ahead and get the other ear in place. And later on, we're going to be erasing more and more of these guidelines. I guess what I'll do now, I'm having to grab another eraser, or a pencil that has a fresh eraser. I'm going to erase a little bit of that initial line that helped us place the eyes so as to further refine the eyes here. And I'm going to go ahead and start indicating the upper eyelash. There's going to be kind of no lower eyelash for this chibi. In fact, that's something that I see on a lot of chibi illustrations, is the tendency to delineate the upper eyelash to some degree, and then just sort of leave no eyelash, lower eyelash at all, or sort of flatten the iris. You see how it sort of flattens out? That flat line down there sort of suggests the presence of a lower eyelid. And then, having darkened this in just a bit, I'm going to add the classic fold of the upper eyelid line. Smooth, Mark. The fold of the upper eyelid line. Say that 3 times fast. Then I'm going to come over here and do kind of the same thing over here, but it's always in the 3/4 view, always compressed from side to side. And indeed, sometimes this eye ends up looking quite different just because of the perspective. But in any case, you can see me sort of darkening in the upper eyelash line, then adding just a bit of a hook here that suggests the other contour of that eye. Later on, I'll get more into the details. Actually, why do it later on? Let's do it right now. At least start with some of the details. I'm going to put in the highlight. I'm going to put in one strong highlight here. That's is going to stay white all the way through to the end of the video, but behind it a little bit, I'm going to suggest the pupil, a really large, open, dilated pupil. In fact, I'll shade this in just a little, mainly to make it clear what this is, so it doesn't look like just another highlight. And then again, same thing over here, just compressed a bit. Oh, look, we forgot the fold of the upper eyelid line. And I guess while we're here, I should get eyebrows in place. Why not? Live it up, Crilly. Get those eyebrows in there. Don't put it off. And gonna skip the nose, although sometimes I see people who get just a tiny little dot for the nose, but not me. I'm just going straight to the mouth. And I'm going to have the mouth shift over so that it's closer to this eye than it is to that one. Because that's just how I roll. And going to make this character happy and smiling because he's drawing chibis. How can you not be happy and smiling while you're drawing chibis? And later on we will get into further details. Let's go ahead and get some indications of the hair. And as always, I encourage you to consider making it your own. Come up with your own hairstyle. Don't feel like you have to follow along in a line-by-line way. And one of the things that excites me about this video, about this project, is it opens up a lot of possibilities for personalizing this concept. Sorry to be so cryptic, but later on you're going to see how it is that you could really go to town, making it your own. And so you can see me just adding curving lines. I guess one principle I would point out is that, you've got this round head here. The lines of the hair tend to curve in this direction over here. They tend to reach some sort of a midpoint during which they are sort of straight up and down, and then they begin to curve in the opposite direction. That sort of holds true for a lot of hairstyles. I guess I can stand by that. And then just going to break up the contour here. Let's imagine that there is a part, sort of a loose part in the hair. Now, one thing that I am keeping in mind here is that I'm going to be cutting this out later, with a knife or a pair of scissors. And so I don't want to get too crazy with like stringy little strands of hair, because that's going to be so hard to cut. Not only hard to cut out, but it becomes very flimsy and not conducive to wear and tear. So part of this is I'm thinking this through as a pop-up card type project, and in going along with that, trying to keep it a bit chunky and not having too many things to cut around. I'm going to go ahead and drop in just 2 lines here for the ear. It sort of helps define that. I suppose we can maybe get away with 1 line over there. And maybe later on I'll be adding further detail. It sort of looks like it needs a little more, but for now I feel like it's time to move on to other aspects of the illustration. I'm going to kind of get this chin to tuck in just a little more. Just refining things as I go on the fly. Let's go ahead and get, well, we'll get this one hand done because that'll help us figure out how to place the pencil. And Chibi hands, happily, are almost always greatly simplified. I'm going to basically just put a few lines in here to suggest the fingers and get one that is pointing out a little so that that one can be holding a pencil. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. Now you'll notice right from the beginning that all of this is on this one flat line. That is going to allow us to cut this out and pop it up. So you kind of have to, you know, obey that line. Don't have anything go below it. Otherwise it'll get a little weird when you pop it out later on. So I'm just drawing, you know, classic cartoony pencil here. Maybe it's one of these. We'll color it in with a little green trim, and he'll be using a Dixon Ticonderoga. And just for my purposes, I am going to give him a collar to his shirt, but again, could be wearing a t-shirt. Indeed, you could change this into a female character, anything you want to do, and vary the clothing choices a whole bunch. I'm going to get short sleeves here. This almost feels like one of my real-time videos where I'm just keeping it real, having to come up with things to say as I draw each and every line. But some people enjoy that when when I'm not fast-forwarding through everything. There will be, of course. Dear old man Timelapse will be rejoining us after he's done with his coffee. And you know when he has too much coffee, oh man, the time-lapse is even faster than usual. Maybe I should have suggested decaf chamomile tea or something. So I'm getting in the other hand here. Erase away just a bit because I want the thumb, the contour there of the thumb to be a bit different. And the thumb is like so, and then get just maybe 1, 2, 3. Get the classic 3-fingered cartoony hand there. And maybe toss in a few clothing wrinkles. Nice thing about Chibi style is you don't have to get too concerned with clothing wrinkles. I'm going to have him wearing shorts. My idea is to do a really kind of cute, innocent-looking, boyish character. So somehow just wearing the shorts makes him seem even younger. I'm going to put a little seam here. I think that's what that's called, a seam. All these years of doing videos, I still don't know the names for anything. And then just, a few wrinkles that help suggest the form of his leg beneath the clothing. Get those wrinkles to sort of cooperate with, your sense of the form of his leg. I'm going to put on, draw some very simple shoe-like shapes. Maybe short little socks on his chubby little legs. And boy, we're getting real close to the end of these basic guidelines for the character, but we're just at the beginning in terms of what he's going to be drawing, and I'm going to shift on to that for the next part of the video. I think, in fact, I'm sure it's going to require shifting the focus. So bear with me. I'm going to change the focus of the camera and probably invite Old Man Timelapse to help me get just a few basic guidelines in here quickly, and then maybe at least one of these things I can do in real time. All right, so you see two different rectangles here that are eventually going to be sheets of paper, drawings that he has already completed. And I will be adding actual Chibi drawings in there in a minute. But for now, I want to do real-time some indications of some of his drawing materials, which I think is going to make this kind of fun. You can get into details and, as I said earlier, personalize things. I'm going to begin by making a drawing of my beloved white gouache. Gotta have white gouache in every one of my videos, and this one will be no exception. Let's go ahead and erase away a little bit, but just give you some idea of how, you're imagining that this part is going to be popped up. This part is like flat on the floor, so you just draw everything as if it's as if you're looking straight down on it. And I figure he needs he's going to need some pencils, and so I'm going to go ahead and drop in a few pointing in various directions. How about one back here next to it, you know, so it all looks a little natural, you know. I find that if things are like right next to each other in perfect alignment, it somehow looks, to my eye, a little less natural if you get slightly different angles for each one of his pencils. Somehow looks more pleasing to the eye, I guess. And then over here I will get a brush that he is using for his gouache. Maybe one more pencil, but again, sort of pointing at a different angle. And I sort of like the idea of these pencils interrupting the contours of the sheets of paper that he has drawn on. But you don't want to go too far in that. You've got to leave the blank space for where the drawings are going to be. And I think it'll be helpful to have just a couple of more pencils over here. Hang on, I'm going to pull this a little further back because I'll be doing something with his hand later on that becomes a sort of interesting aspect of making this look more 3D or more like he's actually interacting with this environment. But maybe one of the pencils should be pointing in the opposite direction. Are you going to have every pencil pointing in the same direction, Mark? How naturalistic is that, my friend? Angry at myself. And there you go. I think that's enough with the pencils, even though he may be using more colors than what we end up adding to this. But I think it's time for me to bring Old Man Timelapse in here to help me do a couple of chibi drawings. Now, these are going to be drawings from my earlier videos, which I think makes it kind of fun. This is almost like a retrospective chibi video. This one is going to be my Chibi Hatsune Miku. And this one upside down, so that it sort of makes sense with him and his pose, is going to be my Chibi Edward Elric. So bear with me, I'm going to go ahead and do both of those sketches in time-lapse. Alright, so you can see how I added these two characters, and happily I have the other videos, and I will link to them in the info box if you want to have your character drawing these same little chibis, but of course you can, change it around and do your own thing. Now what I've got here is a separate sheet of Bristol board where I've drawn one more sheet of paper, and this is going to be the sheet of paper that he's actually drawing on. So bear with me one last time in time-lapse. I'm going to go ahead and do this chibi character. It's going to be my winking peace sign chibi. Again, I will link to it in the info box below. Alright, well that brings us to the end of all the initial line work. I'm going to take this little drawing of the winking chibi girl, set it aside, and pull out my markers so that we can put down a base layer of color. Alright, well I can't do all this coloring real time, but I fear if I kick it into time-lapse right now, my viewers will rise up against me. So let's do a little bit of this real time. This is a Spectrum Noir marker, but I'll actually be using 4 different brands: Touch, Copic, Tria, Pantone. People who've watched my videos, you know that I just have a grab bag of different markers. My advice for you is to just go to your local art store and look at what they have in terms of quality markers. And I always buy them loose, actually. I don't buy a set of markers. I buy one at a time the colors that I like. And not that there's anything wrong with buying a whole set, but they are expensive, let me tell you. So the advantage of buying them one at a time, you get exactly the color you want, and you don't have this, like $200, $300 sometimes those Copic sets cost, and you're not even buying that many markers. So no offense to those of you who can afford to buy that many markers, more power to you, but I certainly don't blame those of you who want to conserve some cash by buying them one at a time as I do. So you can see me going in with quite a light layer of blue here, and later on I'm going to be going on top of that with darker colors to create shading. But I guess I'd talk a little bit about thinking in terms of a color scheme. I've decided that this character is going to be basically bluish green and yellow, his two main colors, apart from a skin tone. And I know I've said this before in other videos, but I'm a big fan of the limited palette, not using every single color in the rainbow. At the very least, you know it will look classy if you reduce the number of colors. So maybe that's enough about that for now. I'm going to put down this base layer, sort of undifferentiated color, and then maybe I'll come back and talk a little as I add a second layer of marker that indicates shadows. Alright, so having got that base layer in place, I can go ahead and go back in with a slightly darker shade of each color. You know, I had yellow on his shirt. I'm going in with a sort of ochreish tone here. It's looking quite dark as I first put it down. I'm kind of hoping that as it dries, it will lighten up a little bit. But I will be able to tweak things with colored pencils, which is what I intend to do in just a bit. You have to sort of think in terms of a light source, understanding where the light is coming from so that you make the right choices here. And I know I've talked about this in other videos, but I guess in case you've missed those videos, I'll just say that it is helpful to, when adding shadows, at least there's a technique that can work in which the darkened areas are just a darker version of the same color rather than going in with gray or something on top. So I'm going to go, let's say, to add some darkness to his hair. I'm going in with kind of this same shade that I used for his shorts over there to create a bit of added shading on the hair, because it is essentially like a darker version of that same color. And that, you know, you can imagine if I was going in with a gray marker at this stage, it would not have that same light effect, that sort of light, cheerful effect that you're getting by using a darker version of the same color or even just a similar color. And that, of course, means that when I want to add shading to this, I need to find a darker color still, and so I've reached and actually grabbed yet another shade here. This one maybe is an example of my similar color, but not exactly the same. There's much more green in this. And yeah, hopefully that won't be too much of a problem. Again, I may need to sort of tame some of these colors by way of colored pencils later on. And maybe I can get away with just a little hint of this green up here to sort of tie the illustration together. Anyway, maybe that's enough about the coloring. I'm going to go ahead and finish that off. Indeed, you're going to see me in time-lapse finish off all the coloring of all the different objects with the marker. And then I'm going to come back and finish the coloring process with colored pencil. Alright, well, we're getting closer to being able to wind things down. I remembered, though, that I did intend to ink after I did the markering. I guess there's flexibility in terms of the order in which you do these things. I sometimes prefer to do the marker first and then do the ink later, and that can leave me free to decide what needs ink and what doesn't. But that is fairly unorthodox, I must admit. Most people tend to put the ink down first, which to me it sort of ends up turning things into like a coloring book almost, and you're trying to imagine what the color's going to look like. I don't know, for whatever reason I came up with my technique, and your mileage may vary if you try it out. So sadly, this is yet another thing that I'm going to have to time-lapse through. This is quite an involved video in a lot of ways because of the numbers of different characters and so forth. I hope you can forgive me for turning this into a time-lapse fest. But let's go ahead and finish the inking, and then I'll do a little real-time coloring with the colored pencils. Alright, well, we're almost done. I just wanted to show you how I'm going to use color pencils to further refine the colors of the marker. Absolutely not necessary if you don't have colored pencils on hand, or the opposite, and forget about the markers and do the whole thing with colored pencils, or indeed use any coloring tool that you prefer. All of this stuff is just suggested ways of doing the project, and I really am looking forward to, fingers crossed that people, that this captures their imagination and people start doing their different versions of it, because as you can see, there's just so many different possibilities. You can change what he's drawing. You could have him, writing the words happy birthday, all kinds of things. Of course, the full effect of this is not yet clear because we haven't popped it out and we haven't slipped in that drawing that he's going to be actually sort of working on, or appear to interact with. But this gives you a sense of how I add shading to marker. And sadly, I think this video has gone on long enough. It's probably going to be another one of my half-hour-long videos, whether I like it or not. So let's go ahead and finish off the color pencil work, and then we can get to the fun part of cutting this little guy out and popping him up and seeing if the effect that I've planned will really work out. Okay, well, some of you probably saw that I took out my beloved gouache, white gouache, and added some highlights here and there. Couldn't resist. I mean, we've got the gouache in the illustration, so it seemed like only the right thing to do. One last thing to do before I start cutting this out is, of course, to add the blushies. I think it's easier to do it now than to try to do it once I've cut the little guy out of the paper. And I guess all of these people need blushies. Let's just go ahead and... Blushies for everyone, for all my friends, and even this one, blushies everywhere. Stand back, everyone. It's National Blushy Day. But now it's time to take out the hobby knife and begin to cut along the black lines of the entire contour of this character. Now I've got a protective sort of pad underneath this. If you don't have one of those, you could just use, I think, a piece of cardboard. Just be as careful as you can to cut along here. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of this in time lapse. And then finally we can have the great unveiling and see if my effect works out. Okay, so I finished cutting all along the contour of the character, and I'm going to do one thing that's a little different from what I normally do. Normally just sort of popping it up at this point. But I'm going to cut along here, maybe around just about the front of his forearm, all the way across, so as to keep that flap there sort of completely open. Then I'm going to be able to take this piece of paper and slide it underneath and make it look like he's the one doing this drawing. And we are very nearly ready to be done, but I'm going to do one last thing. I'm taking out a metal ruler here, and I'm using just a pair of scissors to score along here, which is to say, just to make it easier to fold in a minute. I'm not trying to cut through, far from it, just trying to create a little, indentation there that will make it much easier when it's time to fold the character out. Okay, here we are, the big moment of truth. We're going to take our little drawing dude, fold him up so that he is in the right position to be drawing this little winking peace sign girl. And by leaving that area open, we're able to slide this in, and there you go. Chibi drawing a chibi. Well, thanks so much for watching this video, and extra big thanks to anyone who supports me by getting my books like Mastering Manga, Brody's Ghost, Miki Falls. You know who you are. I never stop appreciating those of you who support me that way. But let's go ahead and wind this one down. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.